Hello everyone, this is part 18 of What If Naruto Had a Proper Teacher, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Anko could see her current strategy wasn't working as planned. She looked to Iruka and then to her Anbu and came to a solution, a risky one however. I want 4 of you to continue trapping the obvious routes from here to Konoha. Keep your distance however, I don't want you die. She continued, the rest of us are going to swing north and travel at top speed for several hours. We are then going to double back and try to avoid their scouting forces and hit the main body. Iruka's eyes widened. The plan was incredibly risky. The Kumo scouts would then be in between them and Konoha. They could easily find themselves completely surrounded. Komodo was a seasoned Anbu and also knew the risks, however he could see the benefits. The scouts were currently concentrated in the forward arc of the enemy formation. By bypassing their sensor shinobi they could do some real damage and have their traps take out far more shinobi. Iruka started to say something but was silenced by Anko's look. We don't have time to discuss this, move out. The 4 chosen Anbu retreated away from the Kumo army and began a continuation of their original trap laying. Meanwhile Anko, Iruka, Komodo and the remaining Anbu sped off toward the north. Fuyu was both pleased and annoyed with her progress. Her sensor shinobi had not been ambushed in the last few hours and were able to clear most of the traps at a decent pace. They still lost a few due to the creativity of their opponent. And that was why she was annoyed. It looked as if Mitarashi had fled back to her accursed village. She expressed her frustration to Darui who had come to ambush the ambushers. Darui on the other hand did not think Anko was finished. I've fought a few times with Konoha and even our victories have always had a snare behind them. I have a feeling that she's still around. Fuyu wasn't going to argue with the right hand of the Raikage and so she listened to what his suggestions were. Divide your scouts and have them search in illogical places. Far to the south or north of our attack path, look for underground passageways and check the identities of your men. Konoha has researched new jutsu so don't take anything for granted. Fuyu relayed her orders and soon scouts were not only clearing and searching along the route to Konoha but in the surrounding areas. Fuyu wasn't sure if Darui was right but she hoped he was. She wanted Anko dead and if she was still out there her days were numbered. Team 8 had been in northern Hino Kuni when the invasion began. The recall order spread like wildfire across the land and Kiba, Hinata and Shino raced back towards home. However they were well away from Konoha and other enemies presented themselves. The major towns and villages were coming under assault by shinobi from Moyagakur and Shimogakur. One such town had an ongoing battle that brought the stench of burning and war to Kiba's sensitive nose. Damn, looks like we are too late to get behind the walls, Kiba growled. Hinata patted his shoulder lightly, we can hit them from the rear. Shino agreed, a surprise attack will disrupt them and we are best suited for it. Team 8 stealthily approached. It was embarrassingly easy to take out the few pickets that were posted. Most of the invaders were currently ravaging the town. This set Kiba's teeth on edge. Hino Kuni had done nothing at all to Moyagakur or Shimogakur. To cowardly band together and invade their country was something they would suffer for. Shino whispered to his companions, they have broken through into the village and there seems to be little formal resistance. My assumption is that they have descended into looting now that they believe the battle is over. Kiba snarled, it isn't over. Not by a long shot. The 3 shinobi had fought in numerous battles. This included fighting against S-ranked opponents. While they held the rank of Chunin they could qualify as Jonin and their teamwork was now near Team 7 levels. Hinata still held a heart full of compassion, however she stilled that emotion and looked to her 2 comrades. We don't have time to take or guard prisoners. We are hunting to kill. Kiba looked on with pride at his mate. This was not the soft Hyuga from the academy. This was the girl, no this was the woman who would fight by his side and teach their enemies to fear the wrath of Konohagakure. Anko's team had some success with her plan. Unfortunately they had been spotted by scouts and one had managed to send a flare of chakra skyward before they were able to silence them. Anko had ordered a pair of Anbu to set a false trail while they continued on. With the knowledge that Kumo would soon be in the area, they redoubled their efforts and soon were able to get within striking distance of the main contingent of Kumo forces. There they were able to play havoc with the enemy. Scores of enemy shinobi lay dead, and when they had attempted to pursue, it had gotten very messy for the enemy. Not stopping there, they had then struck out at another point along the march. Word had spread, however, and they were unable to pull shinobi away, but still they had done damage and slowed several formations. They were circling back for a third go when their luck ran out. Iruka sensed them first. 24 shinobi incoming, they are moving fast. Mitarashi cursed and summoned a pair of giant snakes before the enemy could close. Her Anbu turned and opened the few remaining kunai scrolls they had left. Kunai rained down on the approaching shinobi, who had fairly easily batted them away. There were a few injuries, but only one looked serious. In the lead of the Kumo group was Darui, and he was instantly recognized. Anko bit back another curse and dashed forward to intercept him. Anbu were skilled and their abilities were varied, but against Darui they were woefully inadequate. Hell, I'm not much better. The first Anbu was cut down, but before Darui could do more damage, Anko was there, lashing out with a kunai in one hand and snakes descending on him from her sleeves. Darui calmly cut down the snakes with a few swipes and kicked out with his foot, catching Anko in the ribs. Anko grunted with pain as she rolled on the grass. Lightning crackled around her as another Kumo shinobi sought to end her. The bolt of azure energy nearly hit her, but a sixth sense had made her continue her roll. She ignored her aching ribs and sent her kunai at Darui while simultaneously grabbing a smoke bomb and dropped it on the ground at her feet. Iruka hadn't been idle, and he had been able to execute the Raiten user who had nearly killed his wife. He didn't have time to help against Darui due to having to deal with two more enemies at once. It was an in-close taijutsu brawl that a year ago would have killed Iruka in its opening moments. Instead, he was able to position himself so that the two got in each other's way as often as they helped each other out. Darui had deflected the kunai with his katana and approached the smoke confidently. Anko sensed her elite Anbu fighting toe-to-toe with an equally elite force. Easy pickings were gone, and if she didn't stop Darui, he would easily tip the balance and her soldiers, and Iruka, would be massacred. Anko struck as soon as Darui entered the haze. She was low to the ground and was aiming for his legs. Darui brought his katana down and Anko darted to one side. Darui reacted with instant precision and he continued the stroke but moved its trajectory horizontally. Mitarashi brought her kunai up in a block. She would have then been able to kick out at the deadly nin, however the force of the blow pushed her backward. She again rolled on the ground, and in the midst of the roll she stopped being able to sense Darui. He had moved like lightning and he had somehow gotten behind her. His blade plunged down for a killing strike. But she had been trained by the snake Sannin. Her body swayed abruptly and the blade passed through her ear as she spun and attempted a slash to the eyes. Darui was impressed she had dodged the kill stroke. The kunai came for his eyes and he shifted his grip to one hand and caught her wrist. Anko wreathed in his grip and slipped away despite his superior strength. The move had cost her as his blade sliced at her as she moved away. His katana left a thin string of pain across her ribs. Before Anko could even fully register the cut, he was on her. She went into full evasion mode using every trick she had picked up from Orochimaru's arsenal. Her body moved in ways that seemed to defy human physiology, and it was only enough to avoid serious harm. A cut across the arm, a kick to the face and an elbow to her chest were proof that she wasn't going to win the fight. Iruka caught what was happening at the corner of his eye and created enough separation between him and his opponents to use a kawarimi to appear a dozen feet away from Darui. He flashed through hand seals in a fraction of a second and launched Suten, Teppadama, water release, gunshot, at Darui. The watery projectile flew faster than a kunai. Darui casually leaned backward and the water shot past him. It didn't even give Anko half a second, but it was enough for her to realize her fight was hopeless. Around her she could see her Anbu fighting well, but already some had fallen. Reinforcements would be arriving soon and she saw no path to victory. At least not without taking measures she never thought she would have to take. Kami, I hope this works. Anko jumped backward into the air. That kind of jump would allow Darui to easily get in another attack as she couldn't change her trajectory in mid-air, however it did allow her enough space to use kawarimi. Finally, with enough breathing room, she gathered all the chakra she could and shouted out, Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique. A massive plume of smoke blanketed the area. Anko's chakra network was pounding as she threw down another soldier pill. It was dangerous to take another, but she had no choice. Underneath her purple scales were visible. She was far above the battlefield now as many of the shinobi broke off their encounters to assess the new development. Manda hissed angrily, "You dare summon ME? Break asterisk. Konoha headquarters was a mass of energy and controlled chaos. Shikaku had things well in hand and Jiraiya took a moment for himself and sought out Tsunade. Tsunade was organizing the medical nin teams as well as the hospital staff. Multiple triage stations would be dispersed throughout the village and medical teams would be put in position to provide rapid aid. Tsunade had just finished providing orders to disperse the medical supplies when she spotted her old teammate. Jiraiya motioned with his head and Tsunade excused herself and followed him. "Care for one last drink before we'll all be too busy." Tsunade agreed and they soon found themselves inside one of the many sake establishments. "How are you holding up, Tsunade? I know you hate war." Tsunade grimaced, "I'll be fine. I hate all of this, but I know you are trying to build a lasting peace. I'll fight and I'll make sure Kumogakur is going to be as sick of war as I am." Jiraiya studied his teammate out of the corner of his eye. Tsunade had grown in the last couple of years. She was a long way from the gambling drunk on the run. She had produced medical cures and new treatments. The next generation of Konoha shinobi would be able to handle injuries that would have been fatal or crippling. And while she never stopped gambling completely, she was the soul of moderation. "Has Shikaku spoken to you about your role in the conflict?" Tsunade shrugged, "I'll be on the front instead of running the triage and recovery areas. I'm not surprised and I am fine with it." He was glad that she was being cooperative. He knew better than anyone how stubborn Tsunade could be when she dug in her heels. It was time to throw her some good news. "We still need someone competent to run things though. I was thinking we could move Shizune to that role and you can fill her spot on Guy's team." Tsunade swallowed thickly and blinked a few times. Shizune would be safe, or at least as safe as one could be in the oncoming storm. With genuine emotion she thanked Jiraiya. She actually stood up and gave her teammate a full-body hug that forced Jiraiya hide a lecherous grin. Tsunade's assets had lost none of their appeal to him and he could feel them through his clothes as she pressed against his chest. When she released the hug, Jiraiya sat back down and said, "I know how much she means to you. I can't keep everyone safe, but I'll do what I can. The village is lucky to have you as Hokage. I never treated you the way you deserve to be treated. You're an idealistic, courageous man of vision. Konohagakure is lucky to have you." Jiraiya saw something different in Tsunade's eye. Could she finally be seeing him in a different, possibly even romantic light? He decided not to push his luck. If they both survived, he would take a serious look at the possibility of a relationship though. He laughed, "I've been telling everyone that for years." The two let a few moments pass in silence before Jiraiya spoke again. "Guy, Asuma, Neji and you will be one of our 3 kill teams. Your job will be to go after the Raikage, Killer Bee or Darui. Who are the other 2 teams?" "I'll be with Pa and Ma and we'll be joined by Yugao, Genma and Hiashi. The final kill team will be Inoiki, Shikaku and Choza. They'll also have Ebisu to round out the team. 3 teams for 3 targets. I see Kakashi is rubbing off on you." Jiraiya grinned, hard not to take his suggestions seriously. He's got the smarts of a Nara, the eyes of an Uchiha and the taijutsu of a Hyuga. I'd feel a whole lot better if he was here with us when Kumo arrives. "Him and his team," Tsunade agreed. "Have you received any word? Last we heard the fight was about to begin. Iwa had sent a large force. Unless Anko and Iruka can pull off a miracle, there will be no way that Team 7 will arrive in time." Tsunade drained the last of her cup. "We both have work to do. Don't die on me, Jiraiya." Jiraiya watched her leave. He had no plans on dying, but truth be told he was worried. Kumo's attack force was massive and the Raikage was a monster in combat. He would need Senjutsu just to keep up, and even then it might not be enough. And while his guards were solid Jonin, he wondered how effective they would be against someone like the Raikage. Break asterisk. Anko knew that she had to appease Manda as quickly as possible. "Manda, I was Orochimaru's student, Anko Mitarashi. I would not dare call on you unless I felt it was a battle worthy of your presence." The great snake summon hissed, "Where are my sacrifices?" Anko continued her fawning, "I promise you that I will not only bring 100 sacrifices but 200. Deal with my foes and there will be more opportunities for sacrifices and for battle." Anko crossed her fingers hoping that the great snake would buy it. Manda was a summon like no other. The Great Toad clan offered fighters that could use ninjutsu and senjutsu, but Manda was pure physical power. No other summon was as strong physically, even Ibu's was second in that department. Though of course the mighty salamander made up for it in other ways. If Manda would join the fight they had a chance. Manda hissed and finally said, "It has been too long since I have fought a worthy foe." "Very well, but if I do not have my 200 sacrifices by the next rise of the moon, your life is forfeit." Anko breathed a sigh of relief and reoriented herself on the battle. The Cloud Shinobi had backed off of the attack, but now Manda moved forward seeking to crush a group of them. The sudden strike caught two of them off guard and they were crushed to a pulp under the multi-ton serpent. Darui sprang into action and led off with one of his most powerful jutsus. Ranton, Riza Sakusu, Storm Release, Laser Circus. The attack lashed out from his hands as a wave of energy striking the massive serpent with thunderous and electrifying force. Shit! Anko cursed as she leapt off of Manda's head as the electricity coursed through his mighty body. It was a long way down, but she cushioned her fall with chakra. She looked up to see how Manda was faring and was glad to see the wounded serpent hiss with rage and launch itself at Darui. Darui used a shunshin to dodge out of the way. Manda slammed into the ground where he had been standing, creating a crater of destruction. The other Kumo shinobi threw kunai and launched Raiten Jutsu at the formidable serpent, but none did as much damage as Daru's initial blast. Meanwhile Iruka took a moment to use Suten, Suiban, Water Release, Water Whip, and wielded two of the thin streams of water in his hands. The water whips were able to cause lacerations but did not penetrate too deeply into the skin. They did move fast and Iruka expertly used one to slash a Kumo Jonan's eyes before they could even blink, thoroughly blinding him. Iruka allowed his jutsu to flex over 20 feet long, laying into the Kumo shinobi who had foolishly taken their eyes off of him in order to find a way to get past Manda's nearly impenetrable scales. Darui created a Raiten clone and both he and his clone used Raiten, Kuropanzer, Lightning Release, Black Panther. Both lightning-made panthers raced up Manda's body and spent their energy near his head seeking to jolt his brain. Manda let out another hiss of pain. His nerves twitched and his movements grew erratic. Anko cursed again. Who would have thought that even the great snake Manda would have met its match against Darui? He wasn't out of the fight yet, but Darui moved with a seamless grace that managed to avoid the powerful summon easily. Anko let out two sharp whistles that signaled the retreat. They would use Manda as cover to get away. The remaining Anbu created clones to try to cause more confusion in the area and then darted away. Anko joined Iruka and only 6 other Anbu as they fled the whirling battle. Iruka looked at the Anbu squad that served under Komodo. "Where is your squad leader?" Komodo told us he wasn't coming back. Anko felt a tendril of guilt fill her. Komodo was an Anbu who had served in 2 shinobi world wars. He had lived in Anbu service longer than any other. His Kaiten Jutsu rivaled that of almost any Sarutobi or Uchiha. She hadn't liked his lip from earlier, but he had spoken true. And now he was going to die because Anko had tried to delay the enemy. Give them hell, Komodo. Darui saw Mitarashi break off from the battle, but he had to keep his focus on the angry summon attempting to crush him. While he made it look easy, in reality he was moving at his maximum speed and barely able to keep ahead of its devastating attacks. "I'll crush you." Manda's cries grew louder as he grew more and more enraged at the speck that was harming his body. Darui leapt clear of the attack only to narrowly avoid a stream of fireballs that were racing toward him. His katana radiated Raiten chakra and it collided with one of the fireballs he was unable to dodge. Searing heat gave him light burns but no other damage. Manda continued his pursuit and so he decided to run straight at the fire-breathing Anbu operative. Komodo saw his plan and flung open a storage seal that splashed oil in a fountain over the area. He lit the oil as Darui came near and a fiery wave of death intercepted the S-class shinobi's path. Komodo's eyes bulged behind his Anbu mask as the Raiten clone exploded with electric energy. When did he exchange himself with a clone? The veteran Anbu had no time to think as Manda's massive body nearly slithered over him. Komodo felt a blade pierce into his back as he dodged away from the snake. The blade left his body and he coughed up blood. It had missed his heart but it had hit his lung. Blood ran down his uniform and he gathered the last of his chakra together. Kaiten, Amkasai, Fire Release, Rain Fire, was the final jutsu Komodo unleashed. A massive fireball erupted from his mouth and launched into the sky. From there it exploded and a literal rain of fire covered the area. Shinobi hit by the fire took severe burns. Darui used his katana to whip the fiery rain away from him. Manda's thick scales were scorched but undamaged by the rain. Darui saw most of the men he had brought with him were wounded to one degree or another and several were dead. These were primarily Jonin they could ill afford to lose. And Manda was not yet defeated. But the snake had been wounded and now Darui pumped even more chakra into his Kekai Genkai. Ranton, Riza Sakusu, Storm Release, Laser Circus. The powerful waves of destructive energy poured straight onto the charging snake's head. Manda screamed in agony as he lost full control of his body, twitching like a fish out of water. Darui finished his jutsu and eyed the twitching snake. Adroitly avoiding the chaotic spasms he brought, stabbed his katana down and through the eye of the snake. Manda desperately tried to end the summoning and return to his home, but his own body and chakra refused to obey his mental commands. Still not dead, Darui drove the blade into the other eye, fully blinding the great snake. Die already, the normally unflappable shinobi demanded. The snake's brain was too far away from the eyes due to its size, so Darui had to run up his head even further and then infuse his blade with Reitan energy and drive it down through the scales. The massive serpent twitched again and Darui was thrown off. He flipped back onto the ground and dashed up the still twitching snake. After getting in position he thrust down and into the brain once, twice, thrice and 4 times before the monster finally gave up its life. He wearily dropped back to the ground and took stock of his forces. They were battered. Some of the best Jonin he had rounded up had fought a furious fight. They were in no condition to pursue despite the fact that their quarry was probably equally as damaged. Darui was quite low on chakra himself. He ordered his squads to take a breather. They didn't have to wait long until Fuyu and a score of shinobi arrived. Fuyu immediately demanded to know where the enemy was. Sorry Fuyu, they've been gone for several minutes. They have been badly damaged and their ability to interfere with our march has ended. Return to clearing the traps and the way to Konoha is assured. Fuyu grimaced. Lord Darui, I most insist you give me leave to hunt down Mitarashi. She has dogged our travel and is responsible for the deaths of countless shinobi, and that isn't even the worst of her crimes. Darui narrowed his eyes. This is personal for you. Why? Fuyu looked away. I am just ensuring a beaten enemy won't recover and plague us again. Darui, aha. It will be dark soon and a headlong pursuit against them is foolhardy. They don't have the numbers or the chakra left to stop the march. Your only mission is to ensure our main force arrives in Konoha as quickly and as safely as possible. Go do your duty. Fuyu ground her teeth with frustration, but she would obey the Raikage's right hand. It galled her to let Mitarashi escape. Daru's keen intellect and perception had discovered the truth. For Fuyu it was personal. Her brother had been captured by Konoha shinobi a few years back. Yes, he had been spying on the Leaf Village, but what was done to him at the hands of Konoha's torture and interrogation department was sickening. Today she would obey orders, but she swore that one day Anko would die painfully under her blades. Break asterisk. Samui couldn't believe this was happening. Her army of 1,500 shinobi and 4,000 of the Lightning Daimyo's army had entered Hai no Kuni initially with little resistance. The border forts had been crushed utterly. Granted, they had caused some casualties along the way. Konoha seemed to have created some nasty fuinjutsu traps that had taken their toll. However, it hardly even made a dent in her forces. Then in the pre-dawn hours of their first night in Hai no Kuni, disaster began to unfold. It started with assassins striking at the weak link of the army, the non-shinobi portion. Dozens had died in their sleep before anyone even realized that an attack had taken place. But that was just the start. That morning after breakfast her men started puking blood and they quickly learned the food stores had been compromised. The poison was treatable, but it put hundreds of shinobi out of commission. Samui knew that the poison hadn't been stronger in order to infect more shinobi. If the poison had been stronger, the first few would be falling over dead quick and then everyone would have stopped eating. By using a weaker poison, the Konoha agents had managed to cripple almost a fourth of the shinobi for days. Of course, a quick investigation took place to determine how this happened. Samui had thought themselves lucky when they managed to find the culprit so quickly. He confessed but refused to give accomplices. Samui authorized more forceful interrogation, and soon the man was singing like a bird. That broadened their search and soon interrogations were taking place on several chunin. But her interrogators informed her that either the spies were Jonin-level experts in infiltration and torture resistance or they had been duped by the original. Worse yet was that some of the freshly tortured individuals had familial ties with the Lightning Daimyo. The political ramifications were a headache as the commander of the Daimyo soldiers demanded to be part of any interrogations in the future. And then competing accusations from two rival clans stating being hurled, and Samui had to personally ensure no fighting would break out. Their travel had slowed to a crawl because of this, giving the defenders of Hino Kuni more time to prepare. As the day lingered, more shinobi were turning up dead. Samui did not think there could possibly be that many traitors within the camp. Not even Kakashi Hatake could do this much damage and avoid detection. By coldly looking at all of the facts, Samui realized that those with petty grudges were taking advantage of the confusion to seek revenge for the grievances. Fingers were pointed, more suspicion fell on others. While she tried to take control of the situation, one of her Jonin lead 10 squads to scout south of their line of march. The Jonin and the Chunin squads were never heard from again. No doubt the hapless Chunin had been led into an ambush. Samui consulted Omoi and Karui, but neither were much of a help. Karui demanded examples be made of those suspected of warring on each other or of being traitors. The idea of executing potentially innocent shinobi galled Samui, and she refused to heed that advice. Omoi didn't even give advice. Instead, he talked about all of the different ways the attack could fail. Sighing in frustration at her teammates, she tried to create effective countermeasures. Using her best judgment, she put into place controls over food and medical supplies and shuffled unit formations. Chunin she had known all her life were tasked with overseeing potential traitors, and any Kumo and Kumo conflict was forbidden. In all of those instances, she herself would be contacted to review the situation. The final step was to orient her army on the enemy, and to do that she ordered more speed. If they could come to grips with the enemy, the loyal but contentious Kumo shinobi would cease their infighting, and once battle was joined, the traitors would likely reveal themselves in order to help hold their capital. Plans made, Samui sent a message off to the Reikage explaining the situation. The Reikage would not be pleased, but she had done all that she could. In the end, it would have been far too risky to keep Han alive in the middle of a war. Kakashi made his decision and ended Han. The Biju would not be back for at least another 2 years. By that time, one way or another, the war should be over. Much to Kakashi's relief, shortly after he had executed Han, word arrived that Naruto and Sasuke were injured but alive. Itachi, on the other hand, was dead. Kakashi had faith in his team, but against someone like Itachi his faith had been tested. Not all the news was good. Fu, the Jinchuriki of Takagakure, had been captured by Kisame. Owagakure's invasion had been stymied, but Konoha hadn't been able to finish off the enemy due to Kisame and Itachi. For now their ally was safe and very grateful, but long-term Iwa was far from defeated. The invasion had been sizable, but they still had thousands of more shinobi to call upon. The quality would be lacking, but they were still a threat. Kakashi hoped Sunagakure stayed true to their alliance so that his village could fully deal with the threat of Kumo. Naruto, Sasuke, I'm proud of you both. Naruto, ensure the toads know the full situation here. In the morning, Jiraiya will summon a toad like normal and we'll await orders. Hi Kakashi-sensei, Naruto replied. It was possible, perhaps even likely, that Inoki would initiate mental correspondence again, but Kakashi always liked to plan for the worst. Jiraiya would need to know what happened here. Kakashi knew that Naruto's leg wound would heal by morning. The rapid regeneration of a Jinchuriki was impressive. Sasuke, however, would be down for several days. Chakra exhaustion was not something you could recover from lightly. He was deeply curious about the information Itachi had shared. He knew Sharingan eyes could be transplanted since he had Obito's gift, but the knowledge that a transplanted eye could give greater power to an existing Sharingan wielder was intriguing. He knew his eye would eventually grow weaker and possibly make him go blind. Well, at least in that eye. Could one of Itachi's eyes fix that problem? It felt wrong to take someone else's body part without it being gifted, but Kakashi was nothing if not pragmatic. Then again, would the weakness of the Uchiha eyes eventually affect Sasuke? If so, Sasuke had more of a right to the eyes than he did. As for Kakashi himself, he was dangerously low on reserves, though not quite as bad as Sasuke. Sakura was probably the healthiest of them, as she had not suffered chakra exhaustion or serious wounds. Her efficient genjutsu used little chakra, and her fuinjutsu even less, since most of the chakra used in those seals had already been expended in the making of the seals, not in the triggering of them. That was really the true beauty of the seals, since she could have Naruto make most of the simpler ones while she focused on the complex matrices. Shikamaru, Ino and Choji were also going to be okay, but their wounds would prevent them from assisting Konoha for some time. The only other name of any note was Hana Inuzuka, who had proven to be more than deserving of the title of clan head. While Hana wasn't quite the powerhouse her mother was in close combat, she also had medical jutsu that was nearly on par with Shizune. Her medical abilities, superior senses, her four-legged allies and her immense taijutsu skills made her one powerful jonin. For now Kakashi could do little more than rest and try to recuperate as much as he could. Konoha had many strong shinobi defending it, but it was likely that the Raikage himself would lead the assault. Break. Dawn arrived and the Raikage set out with his army. The scouting cadre under Fuyu had finished clearing the vast majority of the traps and the way to the village hidden in the leaves was clear. Their march would allow them to arrive a couple of hours before dusk. The Raikage did not intend to give them another night to prepare. The Raikage gathered his war council as they marched. Darui, his strong right arm, was there as well as his bodyguard C. Fuyu was recalled to participate and provide her insights. Semui's brother Archoi, who was one of Kumo's rare Kaiten users, was also present along with another 3 jonin. The last individual was the Chushikage, who was eager to come to grips with Konoha. Darui spoke first. Lord Raikage, I know your intention was to strike head-on. While this could still work, it is what they will be expecting. The leader of Kumo growled, what do you suggest? Our spearhead, the frontal attack on the gate of Konoha should include a Raiten clone of you. Let Archoi lead the vanguard. His Kaiten jutsu can do damage to any forces they have massed there. Darui gestured to Onoki, allow Onoki-san to assault on the right flank with a strong core of experienced Chunin and Jonin. His Jinten, dust release, will annihilate the walls on that side. To the left of our vanguard you should strike. Create an opening and have C and Fuyu breach the walls with you. If you run into serious opposition, pull back as you are too valuable to die in battle. I will not run from Konoha shinobi. Think of it as a tactical repositioning. The Raikage stared fiercely at Darui. And then what? If I am forced to retreat, whoever was strong enough to force that would massacre my shinobi. Darui stared back without showing a hint of nerves. Hi. But the damage will have been done. The wall will have been breached and our superior numbers will play in our favor. We have more Chunin and Jonin, the only advantage they have is more S-class ranked shinobi in the defensive position. If we can tire those shinobi out while maintaining our numerical superiority, we will win. The Raikage was not pleased with the tactical advice. In the silence Fuyu added her piece, why are we not surrounding Konoha completely? The master of the storm release addressed her question, so that we give them a path of retreat. A wounded beast is most dangerous when cornered. They will not retreat without cause, but if they do, the war is as good as won. Their base of operations, their economy and their reputation will be in tatters. They will likely bring civilians with them and those will be an anchor around their necks. If we corner them completely we could finish the bulk of their forces here, but our own army will be decimated as well. Archoi frowned, we have the Chushikage and the Raikage with us. We outnumber them. Letting them escape would be foolish. Onoki voiced his agreement along with Archoi and Fuyu. He wanted the village to be wiped off of the map with all of her people inside of it. The Raikage raised his hand and all became silent. Darui, you are my right hand. I disagree with your proposal. All except Darui smiled while Darui kept his face expressionless. But strategy has never been my greatest strength. You have organized this army. You have trained my shinobi and you have made Kumo the strongest military of all of the hidden villages. I trust you. We will follow your battle plan. Stunned silence filled the morning air. Darui bowed, I am honored. The plan was made and the individual actors were given their orders. None save those present knew all the details in case there was a spy within the army. Darui was pleased with the Raikage's trust. The plan he had come up with would best utilize the resources they had. On paper the numbers favored those advising the Raikage, who thought Kumo would win a crushing victory. But Darui was not so optimistic. Yes, Kumogakur had created an army of shinobi who individually were powerful Chunin and Jonin. In terms of raw numbers there were probably 2 or 3 times as many Jonin with this force alone than in all of Konoha. But Konoha had 2 things that Darui feared. Flawless teamwork and the exceptional S-class shinobi Konoha seemed so adept at breeding. A more pivotal fight for the fate of the elemental nations had not occurred since Namika's Minato earned the moniker, Konoha's Yellow Flash. Break. Neither Kakashi nor the rest of his Takagaku relief force had been contacted by Inoki. Naruto instead summoned a toad and provided it with documents outlining the results of the battle. The chief news was the outcome and the death of Itachi. A detailed account of the ready status of the various shinobi under Kakashi's command was also provided. Naruto waited an hour to summon the toad again. They had a long-standing arrangement with Jiraiya to exchange messages via summoned toad. Sure enough, Jiraiya had come through and had responded with a scroll of his own. Kakashi read the scroll and frowned. Konoha was in a tight spot. The invaders would be hitting the outskirts of Konoha before dark. There was no way his team, even if they were all fit to fight, could make it to Konoha before dark. He relayed the information to his team. An exhausted Sasuke grimaced, Sakura had a worried frown and Naruto jumped up. We have to do something, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi blandly replied, what should we do, Naruto? Naruto thought before he spoke, if I run top speed I could probably make it. I'd have to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra, but with it I could run at absolute maximum speed without resting. Kakashi knew that shinobi could put a frightening amount of speed by expending chakra to enhance their speed. However, doing it for hours and hours would subject even hardy shinobi to chakra exhaustion. That was true for everyone except a Jinchuriki who had a separate source of chakra to draw upon. But that would just be you, Naruto. And while you are formidable, our true strength lies with our teamwork, Kakashi responded. I can't do nothing, it's our home. Sakura looked at Naruto and then at her sensei. Kakashi, you're still low on chakra and Sasuke is still suffering from chakra exhaustion, but I'm doing fine. Why don't I go with Naruto? Kakashi instantly saw what she had in mind, but he asked the question anyway, how will you do that, Sakura? There is no way you could keep up with Naruto without falling into the same state that Sasuke is in. He can carry me. Naruto paused for a moment before a smile began to form on his face. Sakura glared at Naruto. We are trying to save the village, not indulge in your fantasies, Naruto. Jiraiya-sama is a bad influence on you. Kakashi graced them with an amused eye smile. I dislike not being with you in a fight of this magnitude, but you've all demonstrated your skill. Naruto and Sasuke, defeating Itachi is an incredible accomplishment. Sakura, you stopped a Bijudama, tailed beast ball, that's something few in history who don't hold the title of Kage have accomplished. I know you two will keep each other safe. Naruto was ready to go and he wished Kakashi and Sasuke well. Sakura would be very light compared to the weights he had trained with, but even so he better start moving if he wanted to reach Konoha in time. It was likely even with his speed and stamina the battle would already be underway, but a clash of thousands of shinobi would not be decided in minutes, it would take hours if not longer. Naruto approached Sakura, not quite sure how to pick her up. Sakura sighed and said, look Naruto, our village is in trouble, stop worrying about grabbing me the wrong way. This is a mission. Naruto flushed slightly but did as Sakura asked. Naruto bent his legs and turned around with his arms behind him. Sakura moved forward and put her legs in Naruto's hands and put her arms across the upper part of Naruto's chest. As expected, she was incredibly light. Naruto lifted her up and began sprinting back toward Konoha. The way he was carrying her meant that his hands were grabbing the back half of her upper thighs. Naruto found this both enticing and awkward. He had never had prolonged close contact with Sakura. Her arms were crossed over his chest and her breasts were brushing his back. Barker, focus on running and not on being a pervert. It's not that easy, Sakura-chan. Sakura grit her teeth and tried to ignore the obvious signs the human body gave off when it was in a state of arousal. However, she soon stopped worrying about it. She had thought about it more after the disaster of a date with Sasuke. Why not get to know Naruto as more than just a teammate? He was kind, compassionate, determined and not bad to look at either. And he loved her. As Naruto's blisteringly fast pace ate up miles of terrain, Sakura smiled. She was in close contact with an attractive man. She decided to dwell on that enjoyable thought and the feel of Naruto's muscles. It was far more preferable than thinking about her family and friends back in Konoha fighting for their lives. Break. Inoki was drained. Only a few Yamanakas could project their minds so far afield. It wasn't simply orienting on a familiar individual's thoughts either. It required the user to create an astral projection of themselves and travel to where the recipient was. Granted, the astral projection could move at astounding speed, but the faster it traveled, the more chakra it burned. Jiraiya had known this and so ordered Inoiki to limit the number of messages sent. Even with that restriction in place, he was exhausted. The last message had been sent to Mitarashi Anko, who had informed him that while they had inflicted some damage, the enemy's advance would not be slowed. Inoiki gave Anko new orders. Her mission would be to rendezvous with any returning shinobi who had not made it back to Konoha ahead of the Kumogakur army. Once she had sufficient numbers, she would try to intervene in the battle. Inoiki staggered to his temporary cot. He would sleep and be woken up by Shikaku and Choza when it was time for him to participate in the battle. The sun was shining outside, but the instant that his eyes closed, he fell into a deep sleep. Kakashi rested near Sasuke. He wanted to know what was on the boy's mind. How does it feel to have completed one of your lifelong goals? Not as good as I had hoped. Oh, I thought that killing him would make the pain of losing my father, mother and entire clan more bearable. In truth, Itachi was the most painful loss on that terrible night. My brother had been the one I idolized even above my father. Kakashi processed this and let silence fill the air. Vengeance doesn't change reality, but it does provide closure. What will you do next? If Konoha is still standing, I'll start rebuilding my clan. I'll look for a strong kunoichi who would be content being a broodmare for the Uchiha clan. If I can't find an acceptable choice, I'll settle for healthy civilians. Kakashi chuckled. Only you could make the idea of copulating with multiple women sound like a chore. Kakashi knew Sasuke was very goal-oriented. He had been emotionally scarred by what Itachi had done. Killing Itachi hadn't erased the damage. Kakashi hoped for his students' sake that Sasuke would allow himself to enjoy life. Perhaps you need a hobby, Kakashi advised. I'm not reading those books, sensei. I said you need to get a hobby, not that you should take up my hobby. And the purpose of this would be. Kakashi looked at Sasuke scornfully. I was in the Anbu Black Ops. We were required to take up hobbies as part of our mental wellness. And our team is in far more high-strung situations than the average Anbu team. Just look for something, Sasuke. Right now you're stuck in a cot. Think about some options and what you would find most tolerable. Experience them and see if something piques your interest. Hi Kakashi-sensei, I have nothing better to do right now. Hana Inuzuka came in at that point to check on Sasuke. You're recovering well for the level of chakra exhaustion you've experienced. Normally a Jonin level shinobi could take as much as a week or more to recover, but in your case it looks like it will take half as long. I'm a Uchiha, Sasuke simply explained. Hana turned to Kakashi and asked, I know Naruto and Sakura went back to Konoha, shouldn't we be headed back there as well? Kakashi shook his head. We'll wait to see how the battle there develops. We've been informed that Konoha wasn't the only target. Right now we are still too battered to move effectively without splitting our forces further. I'd rather stay together and strike hard where we need to, as opposed to stringing ourselves out to be picked off by some of the smaller invasions taking place. Hana understood Kakashi's reasoning, but she worried about her clan. She was the clan head, she should be there leading her clan. Volunteering was the right thing to do at the time, but if she had had foreknowledge of the invasion, she would have stayed behind. Her clan needed her. Kakashi read her easily. I know you are worried, but have faith in Jiraiya-sama. The Inuzuka clan head couldn't disagree with that and left the two Team 7 members to care for her other injured comrades. Danzo was pleased with his success. The combination of Fu's Shinton Kagutsuju and no Jutsu, Mind Puppet Switch Cursed Seal technique, and his own Koto Matsukami had allowed havoc to reign in the Kumo camp. The oncoming Kumo army had been badly damaged, with hundreds of shinobi injured or dead as well as twice that number of normal soldiers. The enemy commander's actions were mitigating some of the damage. Their countermeasures weren't very successful except for one, the order to move faster. Given more time, the damage and death would continue to mount, but with them moving as quickly as they could, he had but one more day to wreak havoc. That meant Danzo would be unable to use Shisui's eye again before they arrived. Danzo wished for more time, but that wasn't going to be an option. And so he had ordered General Maki to confiscate any oil that could be found in the city. Danzo had been quite aware of the new ideas Sakura and Kakashi had and decided to adapt one particularly delightful plan they had opted not to use. The oil with the aid of Doton Jutsu would be forced underneath the ground around various parts of the city. When the time was right, it would be lit on fire, turning the area into a fiery death trap. Shinobi were resourceful and could probably avoid the flames, but the soldiers would not be lucky. And when Danzo used his own futon jutsu to fan the flames, most shinobi would be seriously injured or even killed. Of course, the unskilled soldiers the good general had rounded up would be placed over those oil fields so that the invaders would not suspect a trap. Danzo could not think of a better use for the incompetent men. Even 50 of them probably couldn't take on a single Chunin. The damage to the city would be immense, however any price could be paid to ensure victory. Danzo was also confident in his ability to kill the enemy general. Sumui was a skilled jonin and deserved her a rank bingo book rating. But Danzo had knowledge of her abilities while she would be fighting blind. Added to that, he had multiple uses of Izanagi at his disposal which would require his opponent to hit him with multiple killing blows. The enemy had suffered infighting, assassinations, poisoning and diminished morale. Their leader dying would cement the defeat and scatter the attacking army to the winds. Break. Jiraiya stood atop the central gates that faced toward the Kumogakur army. The Raikage was known for his devastating frontal assaults, and so he had gathered 2 kill teams at this very spot. With him were his personal guards, Yugao, Genma and Hiashi Hyuga, who had been drafted for this battle. Hiashi was extremely skilled in taijutsu and his clan's fighting style. In close quarters there were few who could match him, though the Raikage was definitely one of them. Genma and Yugao were solid jonin and skilled in their own unique ways, however their task would be to take care of any of the Raikage's personal guards as opposed to facing the Raikage himself. Next to them was the second kill team. Technically it was Guy's team, but Guy had relinquished command to Tsunade. The two of them had incredible striking power and durability. With them was Asuma, one of the top of futon users of Konoha. Rounding out the team was Neji Hyuga, who was an incredible prodigy in his own right and was almost at the level of Hiashi. Jiraiya had Lord Fukasaku and Shima, the 2 great sage toads, with him as well. They were fused to his shoulders and Lord Fukasaku took the time to speak. Jiraiya boy, tell us about this Raikage and why you fear him so much. Who said I fear him? Shima clucked her tongue. You brought us here and have surrounded yourself with your village's best. Jiraiya grumbled about being the Hokage and how he should be respected. We're still waiting, Shima nagged. He's fast. Almost as fast as Minato. He's faster than me even in sage mode. He's also strong and utterly ruthless in combat. He'll hit as hard as Tsunade and with incredible speed. He surrounds himself with Raiten armor which gives him durability and defense that is nearly impossible to breach. I've never tried a Rasengan against it, but I know it won't be enough. Pa intoned, surely he has a weakness. Jiraiya gave a small shrug. Asuma's chakra blades filled with futon-charged chakra will be our best bet. Taking advantage of Futon's natural ability to counter Raiten should allow the blades to pierce through. And while the lightning armor is nearly indestructible, each blow that we land on him will cost him chakra. He can be exhausted just like any other man. He motioned to Guy and Tsunade. The stronger the blow, the more chakra is lost. Neji entered the conversation. Our third kill team also has an alternative method that could work as well. If Shikaku can trap him in shadows for a fraction of a second, then Inoiki can invade his mind. If successful, he could force him to drop his lightning armor and then he will be vulnerable. Jiraiya had given it some thought on whether to activate the Inoshika-cho team. Letting the genius Nara be in charge of the defense during the battle was tempting. Pairing him with Inoiki's ability to deliver messages through telepathy would give them unparalleled ability to coordinate the battlefield. However, keeping such a powerful and flexible team in a support role would also be a waste of resources. He had decided to keep the third kill team in reserve for the initial stage of the battle. Probably in the opening minutes they would be deployed to the best location. Shikaku would be able to use his mind in the first stages and then he would turn over the reins to Morino Ibiki, the head of the Konoha Intelligence Division. While not having the raw intelligence of a Nara, he was used to gathering information and quickly understanding it. Shima asked, what about other threats? What else does Kumo have? Hiashi replied, they have many more Jonin-level shinobi than we do. Many of them are Kenjutsu and Ninjutsu-based specialists. They only have 2 other S-ranked shinobi. One is their Jinchuriki Killer Bee and the other is Darui of the Storm Release. The group discussed the capabilities of each and brought the 2 toads up to speed. They also outlined a bit more of Konoha's defense. They had mixed the large Hyuga clan evenly throughout the village. The Aberrane clan was concentrated on the right flank alongside the Akamiki clan. The left flank held the powerful Kaiten ninjutsu specialists of the Sarutobi clan as well as a hodgepodge of smaller clans and shinobi from civilian families. The Inuzuka clan was part of the mobile reserve. The tunnels underneath Konoha that had been used by Root were filled with Anbu and Inuzuka ready to pounce at the best possible opportunity. The civilians had been evacuated to the shelters. The genin were given kunai scrolls and placed near the civilians. A few of the more experienced genin were tasked with carrying wounded, providing supplies to areas if necessary, and would also be used as couriers. As of yet, Kumo had not tried to completely encircle Konoha, and so a large group of Chunin with a number of sensory types were tasked in the rear of Konoha, in relation to the Kumo army. Kunai were sharpened, soldier pills were distributed to everyone, and trapped areas were memorized by all of the shinobi. Sakura's dispersal seals had been attached to the wall around Konoha and to other buildings, making them extremely hardy. Those seals would take a concentrated blow and disperse it into a wide area, taking deadly attacks and reducing them to mere pressure. Hardening seals and resistant seals were also attached to important areas. Kumogakur had come to destroy their home, and Konoha was ready. Their village had both san and back. It was a raid with the best seals and traps that were available. It had strong teams of shinobi who knew the duty. Konoha was ready for war. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.